within account abstraction today that are actually building something around this. Okay, a couple of people. How many people have heard about account abstraction? Cool, cool. Hopefully, like after like so many panels around those conferences. Let's start quickly. So we are not going through like what AA is or any very specific technical deep dive. I just want to like ask our panelists a quick round of intros and then we can start. Ahmed, you can start.
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Ahmed. I'm one of the co-founders at Bioeconomy. We're here to really help developers enable them to deliver effortless experiences to their users, and essentially what we're providing is a full stack solution to account abstraction. Yeah, that's a bit about us.
My name is Clem. I'm working at Safe as product lead for Safe Core. We're building tools and infrastructure on smart accounts. We are also a self-custodial protocol, securing funds for DAOs, organizations, individuals, and beyond. And yeah, we're very much looking into the AA topic.
Hey, I'm Mirko. I'm a developer for MetaMask, which you might have heard of. It's a crypto self-custodial wallet. I also do a lot of community and education side. I really like the account abstraction topic and space. We have this Telegram channel, which I'm part of, called 4337 Mafia. If you are not there, feel free to join. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, my name is Tom. I'm a product manager at the Ethereum Foundation, focusing on ERC 4337. And before that, I co-founded and was CEO of Quartus, which was a Web3 provider SDK.
Awesome, thanks for the quick intros. Tom, let's start with you. Like, obviously, you see like all the ecosystem flourishing around 4337. Since specific from like March 2023, what are the exciting moments that you saw around AA?
I guess it's hard to pick just one. I think like in general, when you see how many different projects you're seeing getting built around this, it's a constant feel like of a hockey stick that my Telegram is just blowing up all the time, and it's just like it's hard to keep track. So I think that by itself is exciting. And we did see some more, I could call them like very newsworthy events that happened. For instance, a couple of like after March, I think it was around May or June, that Visa released the fact that they they built their own paymasters and are researching into how they can be a part of that ecosystem. So I feel like that's pretty exciting because it shows, you know, the possibility of mainstream adoption. And besides that, we just recently finished a round. We're still waiting for the final dots to be signed and everything, but in general, there are around 18 projects that received a grant from the Ethereum Foundation to build an account abstraction, so that's also pretty exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, I've seen pretty cool stuff. I was talking about the Telegram channel before. When I joined, I think we were like 80 people probably. It was number 80 or something. Now we're more than 1,200 since January. So you can see really that there is a lot of people that are interested in this space, that want to build cool stuff. Obviously, Thomas was mentioning some cool project following through a few. Alchemy recently launched something really cool with the dashboard. Yeah, a bunch of wallets trying to do stuff with account abstraction. MetaMask itself, we're doing things in the space, especially with Snaps, which is like an ecosystem of a program that can run on top of MetaMask. We're letting user kind of build a Snap that can leverage account abstraction. Economy, of course.
Yeah, shout out to the SDK of Economy. It looks like I'm moderating a panel of politicians here. But anyway, like everybody know kind of already benefits of AA. I want to actually go on the other side. Like, what are the misunderstandings, or what are the things that people don't get directly when they're thinking about AA, or the things that you think that are just misunderstandings around the space?
I mean, I actually wrote a tweet thread that was quite controversial, maybe like some time ago, about the misconceptions between AA and 4337. The DSC 4337 standard is a standard that's pushed to unify and standardize the way accounts can relay transactions onto the blockchain. And so its primary value proposition is to decentralize the relayer. And for those who don't know, the relayer allows end users to effectively have sponsored and meta transactions, moving away from the gas system that EVM chains typically impose on users. So it's a very interesting value proposition. But account abstraction as a topic is, exceeding, I believe, the standard, and it's much more of an industry-wide kind of effort that we're currently looking into to try and improve the overall user experience and usability of Web3 products. And so behind it, you can think of network abstraction, chain abstraction, working on new authentication methods that allow those technologies to be more easily used by all sort of parties, not just new joiners, but also existing users. Yeah, I guess that's for me one of the biggest misconceptions. And yeah, also AA is just not about authentication and social logins.
Ahmed, within the economy, you guys have always been very focused on developer onboarding. What are the barriers that you see today within AA, providing specific SDK to this developer audience that are popping up? You want to share with the audience?
Excuse me. For sure. So one thing that we've realized quite a lot was the fact that there still needs to be a lot of user education or developer education on account abstraction. So maybe collectively, right, we could just do better to make it easier for developers to understand what this is about, because this is, a new RC which they need to be familiar with, a new transaction type as well, and just abstracting as much as that away from developers themselves will make it very easy. I remember we had one application, right, and it's fine to share, but the way they integrated the SDK was just completely wrong. It was just really funny. It was they basically enabled an NFT mint. It wasn't too many transactions, but they did an NFT mint. The transaction went into the contract, the smart account, and then they just moved it to the end user's EOA, right? So it's what's the point of doing that? It's just, so they kind of just burn extra gas for this use case. So that's something we're also trying to ensure that we just make it easier for developers to just understand how this will eventually look like, right? And the second thing is this industry-wide issue that we have with EOAs and sort of moving folks from using EOAs to smart accounts, right? And I think everyone predominantly maybe uses Safe, in one way or another and that's probably that is definitely the most used smart account, but that's about it. We don't use it in our daily lives. And so if you're in an existing application users who are using which is using EOAs, for example, for them it's harder, right? Because for them it's easy to onboard new users, but for the existing users, how will that UX look like, right? But for newer applications, newer consumer apps, for them it's easier because there's no legacy EOA users that they need to think about. So these are initial sort of I'd say challenges that we've seen.
Sounds good. And then this is for Tom, but for everybody that want to answer. But trends-wise, right? This panel is all about beyond 437. What do you see? What excites you? What are the next steps? And where do you see the ecosystem growing from all these next steps and ecosystem achievement that we see?
Sure. So again, we're back to the exciting stuff, but and I will go back to paymasters because I think part of what that enables is a really powerful user experience. In addition to everything around key management, which is what we have with wallets, which is obviously very important, the abstraction of gas fees themselves opens up so many possibilities because gas fees are a huge barrier to adoption. And this, in addition to being a very powerful UX, offering powerful UX capabilities, it's also something which is very interesting to other players in the ecosystem because in terms of the, let's say, monetization capabilities that it offers, it opens up a lot of interesting possibilities because there's some sort of relationship where the user, someone needs to pay for their gas fees Now, how is that some, like, what are they giving in response to getting those gas fees? So it could be ads, it could be someone saying, look, you pay me USDC, I'll pay the ETH, but I'll take a little bit off the top. So there's a lot of monetization capabilities there, which is very good if you want to have a robust system. So I'm very excited about paymasters by themselves giving a lot of financial incentives into making sure account abstraction is something that gets mainstream adoption. And in addition to that, we're just seeing so many creative uses of account abstraction. For instance, a great project that came out of ETH Tokyo. So it turns out that, I don't know how many people know this, but in Japan, around 70% of the people have an ID, a government-issued ID that has an NFC inside that allows you to sign stuff, sign digitally. So they basically hooked it up to a wallet where your government-issued ID is your hardware wallet. So recovery becomes a lot easier, right? Now, if you lose your key, they can give you, it's not going to be the same private key, but there's a way to map old keys to new keys. So it allows you to actually have some sort of account recovery that you set up in advance. Yes, you have to trust the government in that regard, but decentralization in my eyes is not about you don't trust anyone. No, it's you can always choose to opt out of trusting someone. So you can use that system, but if you decide it doesn't work for you, you can always say, you know what, never mind, I'm revoking that, government ID. I now want to use whatever, my 12 words on a piece of paper, whatever you want. It's all about choice. So we're seeing a lot of very creative use cases for wallets, and I can go on different other kind of recovery mechanisms that we were seeing, or other, key signatures, secure enclaves. Everybody's working on making, SECP 256R1, which is, the fingerprint Face ID you have in your phone, allowing that to be your private key. And that is something that I think if we're talking about mainstream adoption, that's what people are used to. So we need to give them what they're used to and work from there, and then start adding more security capabilities on top of that.
How many of you guys know what a paymaster is? Okay, cool. Already debriefed audience. In terms of use case, obviously in Snaps we see a lot, but for the general audience here, what are the use cases you want to see more? We saw, I saw so many Snaps around account management, Guardian recoveries, but what are the use cases around whatever you do in this ecosystem you want to see more being developed?
Like the game space, I think there's some use case that you can kind of come up with. I've seen recently some one-click minting, which I think was very cool. That there's so much stuff that can be done in there. In addition to what Tom said, what I wanted to add is what I see, it's a lot of people that focus on the client part, a lot of UI stuff. Everyone wants to build a wallet, everyone wants to be the new MetaMask, which more power to you if you manage to do it, but there is also so much stuff around the infrastructure. We're missing many things, and I don't see as many projects as there should be in the space as well. So infrastructure depth, it's something that we need more of.
Yeah, I guess that's partly due to the fact that there's high switching costs for those teams to move away from the EOA setup, and any additional question? We only have 2 minutes left.
Okay. 2 minutes left. Any question from the audience? While we're waiting, do you see any enough standardization around this ecosystem?
No, and I would have loved to have the question of what do I think about what's going to happen for the space for this year and the coming one. I think there's going to be a lot of pushes toward the standardization of modules and plugins around smart accounts. So smart accounts being the enabler for AA. I think we're going to see more and more initiatives to try and streamline the development of functionalities that can be directly connected to the contract, as in the account, at the account level. And so, at SAFE, obviously we're going to drive a few of these initiatives, but I think many projects, interestingly, are doing a lot of work right now on this topic. And so literally trying to expand the functionalities of accounts directly through other contracts that we can connect to smart accounts. So yeah, I guess like the modernization of the ecosystem and of smart accounts for me is the, among the most interesting elements. Yeah.
You know, one thing that is on top of our minds is, right, so once users have, you know, a smart account maybe on one chain and another chain, and you might have account recovery or some form of like state, right, like already attributed. But what if the user, of course, one of the features of account abstraction and sort of this whole movement is that you could easily just, you know, remove a plugin, add a plugin, right, and that could, of course, alter these smart accounts, but they won't sync very easily across chains. And so that's something that, you know, would also sort of need to push in at least the next 6 to 12 months, because at least with the different wallets we're speaking to, different clients, you know, the biggest issue is, okay, if a user has to, like, if they're, you know, changing something, right, how will it be changed across all other chains as well? So yeah, it's definitely like something that is top of the mind as well.
If I can just add one more thing about modularization, which Clem mentioned, which I think is, you're right, it's one of the more powerful things to come out of account abstraction. I see it as the same way we have this interoperability between smart contracts. So you're just kind of making this more of a micro version where you're going to have this interoperability between all the different models that are going to be out there, and nobody will have to kind of reinvent the wheel, right? If you have a powerful way of social recovery and everybody's kind of using this model, it works, it's safe, we've been using it for 2 years, and it can be a snap, it can be, you know, used in different ways across the ecosystem, then, you know, we're having this effect where we're building on top of things that already exist, so we can move a lot faster. So, yes.
Thank you so much, everybody. I guess the mic right now is mine. If I can have you guys stand up and take a photo, so we're kind of short on time, but thank you so much for such